Breaking news from around your world on this Friday, February 22nd, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. House Democrats are scheduled to file a resolution Friday seeking to block President Trump's declaration of an emergency on the U.S. Mexico border, which the president is using to get more money to build his promised border wall after Congress declined to give him the funding he demanded. Democrats have said Trump overstepped his authority by sidestepping Congress. The Democratic-controlled House is expected to pass the resolution, but its fate is less certain in the Senate, where Republicans hold a narrow majority. Normally, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell could just decline to bring legislation to the floor, but under a provision in the National Emergencies Act, the Senate has to take up the matter within 18 days after the House sends it over. North Korea has warned that it is facing a food shortfall of some 1.4 million tons in 2019 and has been forced to almost halve rations, blaming high temperatures, drought, floods, and United Nations sanctions. North Korea said it would import 200,000 tons of food and produce about 400,000 tons of early crops, but that it would still be left with a gap, and from January would cut daily rations to 10.5 ounces per person. The UN estimates a total of 10.3 million people, almost half the population, are in need, and some 41% of North Koreans are undernourished. The release of the undated two-page memo by the North Korean mission to the UN, and seen by Reuters, comes ahead of a second summit next week between President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong Un on denuclearization of the Korean peninsula. U.S. Special Representative for North Korea Stephen Biegun said earlier this month the U.S. has eased rules on humanitarian assistance to North Korea and was working to clear a backlog of UN approvals. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said he was closing his South American nation's border with Brazil as he continued to battle with political rivals vowing to bring in foreign humanitarian aid. Maduro said on TV that he also might shut down the border with Colombia to prevent the opposition from bringing in the supplies. The embattled socialist president insists there is no humanitarian crisis in his country and says the effort to bring in the aid is a U.S. orchestrated stunt to make his government look bad. Opposition leader Juan Guaido, who has declared himself Venezuela's legitimate interim leader with backing from the U.S. and other countries, is leading a convoy to the Colombian border, vowing to make sure the aid gets to the population. Japan is currently battling its worst measles outbreak in a decade. Japan's National Institute of Infectious Diseases said that as of February 10th, the number of measles cases hit 167 for 2019. A total of 27 of the nation's 47 prefectures have reported patients sick with the highly contagious disease. The prefecture of Mie had the highest number of patients with 47 and is thought to have started at a religious group's training workshop, which led to many participants and their families falling ill. Osaka also had 47 confirmed measles cases, with 21 workers and customers of a skyscraper commercial complex having been infected. The recent outbreak has local health authorities urging the public to get vaccinated, while some are also informing the public of travel routes taken by those known to be carrying the disease in order to prevent its transmission. Japan's outbreak has occurred as several Asian countries are working to contain the disease as well. Last week, the Philippines Department of Health counted more than 8,400 measles cases and was expecting that number to rise due to vaccination fears in the country. A very powerful 7.5 earthquake struck southern Ecuador in the early hours of Friday, close to the country's border with Peru, although no immediate reports of casualties or damage were available. The U.S. Geological Survey said the quake was centered 71 miles southeast of the town of Pelora in the Morona Santiago province at a depth of 82 miles. According to the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, because it occurred so far inland, there was no risk of a tsunami being triggered. The quake was felt in the Ecuadorian capital, Quito, and the coastal city of Guayaquil. Peru's official Geophysics Institute said it registered 2 aftershocks of 6 and 6.6 magnitude in the 30 minutes that followed the initial tremor. A 7.8 magnitude earthquake that shook a central area of the Ecuadorian coast April 16, 2016, killed more than 700 people, destroyed hundreds of homes, and caused more than $3 billion in losses. The White House says the U.S. military will keep 200 troops in Syria to serve as a peacekeeping force after it pulls out most of its soldiers. President Trump has come under fierce criticism for his decision last December to withdraw 2,000 troops. He said the Islamic State group had been defeated, but critics warn the group has not disappeared entirely. The latest announcement comes as the battle continues to remove IS out of the last pocket it holds in Syria. U.S.-backed fighters belonging to the Syrian Democratic Forces Alliance are making a fresh attempt to evacuate civilians from Baghouz, a village in eastern Syria on the Iraqi border. An estimated 300 ISIS fighters are thought to be holed up inside a tiny pocket of land. U.S. officials said American forces were initially given 30 days to leave Syria, but Trump later said the withdrawal would be slowed down. White House spokeswoman Sarah Sanders said a small peacekeeping group of about 200 will remain in Syria for a period of time. Duke University said Thursday that freshman basketball superstar Zion Williamson suffered a mild knee sprain when his Nike PG 2.5 shoe burst apart at the start of the Blue Devils' primetime televised game against North Carolina, suggesting he could return soon to the currently number 1 ranked team. Nike shares dropped by 1% Thursday as the athletic apparel maker scrambled to figure out why the shoe disintegrated. Former President Barack Obama was courtside and was shown in a widely seen video reacting by pointing toward Williamson and saying his shoe broke. Duke struggled after Williamson's injury, losing to number 8 UNC in a stunning upset. The incident renewed debate over whether playing college ball is worth the risk for players who stand to make millions as pros. Israeli nonprofit Space IL's moon lander took off from Florida Thursday night on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, marking the first attempt by a private company to reach the moon. The unmanned spacecraft is called Bereshit, Hebrew for Genesis or in the beginning. If the mission succeeds, Israel will become only the 4th country to land on the moon, joining Russia, the U.S., and China. Bereshit will take nearly 2 months to reach the moon, circling Earth in a gradually widening loop until it is far enough out to be caught by the moon's gravity and pulled into lunar orbit. It will then attempt to touch down April 11th in a lava plain called the Sea of Serenity. A Japanese spacecraft touched down on a distant asteroid Friday on a mission to collect material that could provide clues to the origin of the solar system and life on Earth. Workers at the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency Control Center applauded Friday as a signal sent from space indicated the Hayabusa 2 spacecraft had touched down. During the touchdown, Hayabusa 2 is programmed to extend a pipe and shoot a pinball-like object into the asteroid to blow up material from beneath the surface. If that succeeds, the craft would then collect samples to eventually be sent back to Earth. 3 such touchdowns are planned. Japan's space agency has concluded from its data after the first touchdown that steps to collect the samples were performed successfully. JAXA, as the Japanese space agency is known, has likened the touchdown attempts to trying to land on a baseball mound from the spacecraft's operating location of 20 kilometers above the asteroid. That asteroid, named Ryugu after an undersea palace in Japanese folktale, is about 900 meters in diameter and 280 million kilometers from Earth. And that's your update for this Friday, February 22nd, 2019. I'm Larry Rice. Thanks so much for supporting this podcast and for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful weekend.